Hello, everybody! If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, not on his normal laptop, and I'll tell you why in just a moment, is Tom. What's up, buddy?
Hello, friends. What a clickbait
Yeah.
pitch.
Uh huh.
Open. I like that. That's nice.
Thank you. Click
That's
here
classy.
to learn why Tom is not on his normal laptop. Tom is on a replacement laptop because Tom has broken his laptop once again. Longtime fans of the show will know that Tom is famous for breaking his laptops. And this time he broke his laptop by spilling essential oils all over it. Now, when he told me this, I was like, what a gift you've given me in this nonsense that you're trying to
Well,
do here.
well, that's not what I originally told you. Originally, I told you I spilled essential oils on my laptop
Mm-hmm.
in an attempt to try to kill viruses on the
Sure.
computer.
Sure. I understand. Yes. And I know
Yes.
you're not that dumb. I mean, you're using essential oils, which is your use case is in actuality one of the few real use cases for this nonsense.
Right.
But at
Right.
any rate, yes, Tom
What?
used like go ahead. You don't want to share your
So what?
thing. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So what Vince is trying to allude to is the fact that I can't take medicine. I
Yes.
can't take normal painkillers,
You're
and
allergic to
so
several painkillers, a very common
yes,
condition.
yes. And so I have terrible headaches, and when I do get these headaches, I use essential oils to open the capillate, whatever.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
it helps out.
Yeah.
It's nice. Um, but
Uh-huh.
this time I had walked into the bedroom and set the laptop down on the edge of the bed and began to open the essential oils as the laptop began to slide off. And so in my cat-like reflexes, I
Uh-huh.
reached out to grab the laptop with an open bottle of essential oils,
And spilled
which
them all over the whole laptop
yeah,
everywhere, which they immediately sucked into the laptop, and that was it for that.
and then all the crystal LCD, because I shut it off quick and turned it sideways, and I'm like, oh, I got this. And then I turned it on, and it seeped into the LCD screen, and it was just not good.
Yep.
So luckily, I Apple Care has total laptop catastrophic replacement. So for a nominal fee, I got a very expensive laptop fixed for free.
Well, there
I
you
mean,
go.
not free, but
Sure.
yeah.
Fantastic. Hilarious. I love everything about this story. You're an idiot as always. All right,
Yeah.
so this is you're one of the few people who that form of a replacement plan is such a good idea for. I
It's I have used up all of my catastrophic replacements on this plan
Mhm.
for this laptop. So I'm on my as my kid said, I'm on my own now.
Yep.
That's what my son said, and my daughter said, "Can you buy more?" So
There you go. You're raising wise children. I'll say that much for
yes,
sure.
indeed.
But they have so much to learn from your mistakes, so that's what's nice. They can't. They say kids become the opposite of their parents, so your children are going to be very successful in life.
Clearly. Oh yes.
All right. So, at any rate, tonight we're going to be talking about a particular thing that's been on my mind for a while. Tom and I, we were originally going to do a Stormcast show tonight, but we had to reschedule our guests. Don't worry, they'll be back in a couple weeks. So, we will be doing Stormcast. So, we had kind of a last minute replacement. And I was talking to Tom today about like subjects, and it suddenly clicked in my mind because I've had this rant stored up for a long time on this one, and so on terrain and endless spells. So I thought, what better chance than in a week where we didn't have another topic? So we're going to talk about army terrain and endless spells later tonight, and what a better day to talk about it than when we get the reveal of the big giant lizard man pyramid, right?
Of more terrain and no endless spells,
Sure.
which is like the perfect combination.
I would argue the opposite, but we'll get to that. That's what we'll
No,
get to.
I'm being flippant when I say that it's the perfect combination.
Sure.
Yeah,
But first, of course, the news. So, what do we got, Tom? Rumor engine's up on the screen. You want to start there?
it is. It is. It's totally something Slaneshi.
I agree with you. My initial impression was, as many people said, Doc, right?
Right, right.
Because it does have those sorts of blades. But when you look, the blades do look a lot more like Sileski's, like
Yep,
Sills specifically, like the
yep.
blades that Eski is riding on. Those back blades, they have the same curvature, the same internal, like little boop boop cutout things. Um, which brings me hopeful again. I was not expecting to be hopeful about this, but all of a sudden, looks like leather daddies are back on the menu, boys. That's right.
Well, so let me say this. So I reached out. I was pursuing some other rumors about books that were leaked into the wild, which I couldn't actually confirm. Um, but in that pursuit of those rumors, I did come away with some really interesting like hot takes, and
Mm-hmm.
by hot
Mm-hmm.
takes I mean actual leaks potentially
Mm-hmm.
as to the future. And some of those leaks include some interesting things about Teclis, like a variable spell casting, like how many spells he casts per
That
turn.
he will be the most powerful spellcaster we have
Yes,
seen. Yes.
yes,
If
he
those
will be.
rumors prove true, he
Yes,
is simply the best spellcaster, period. End of discussion.
right. Which like it could range from like him only casting 2 spells per round, but never being able to be unbound, to like or multi-casting up to like 4 per round or something, and like table wide unbinds like what we're seeing with Seraphon and similar stuff like that. So he's going to be
Sure.
hot. Um, Other news or other rumor stuff. Giants like doing some really interesting, unique mechanics that could happen
Mm-hmm.
with regard to objectives and giving stuff the boot, kicking stuff around the table,
Mm-hmm.
which could be interesting. But the more interesting rumors that I thought was really fascinating in light of this rumor engine was the fact that we will have an additional Slanesh release this year,
Yep.
as well as an additional Doc release, or an update of Doc. Let me say it that way.
Sure. Which, I mean, we're getting into the world where we could start seeing the part twos.
Right.
Right? That's
Right.
that's very real. We've
Yeah.
talked about Cities Part 2 being such a low-hanging fruit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, totally.
So the idea that we suddenly get other armies Part 2s is very easy to believe. And, you know, when we got Slanesh originally, everybody was like, oh, darn it, where is, oh, beans, where's my
Right.
mortal Slanesh, right?
Right.
And now all of a
Surprise.
sudden, maybe we get him as a Part 2, which I would dig. Sure, that's fine. I'll spend another couple months painting Slanesh. You got me. You got
Right.
me
Like,
back in.
well, and I have to wonder, like, to be honest, I think that we may actually see them related.
Okay.
And I talked about this a little bit, that like I wonder if we don't get like a betrayer faction of witch elves that like go cult of pleasure style, like
Sure.
the
That didn't fully recover from being inside Slanesh and are
right,
now like given over to it. Yeah, sure.
right, and like, and especially with the Melusai and like the snake stuff, like all those aesthetics are just dead on.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just makes me wonder if we get like some type of dark elfy Slanesh faction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so maybe it's not full leather daddies. Um, or I don't know, maybe it is. Maybe the dudes are leather daddies, and the chicks in the army are witch elves.
Sure. No, I would dig. Like, I think that this is a great way to go. There's so many armies that we look at and we go, man, it would be awesome to have an expansion to that army, right? Where we could
Right.
see additional areas of exploration.
Yeah.
And I know the sculptors often lead the way, but the reality is, I think even as artists, they'll often have ideas they never got to use the first time around.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so it would make sense that there would be some things they'd want to come back to.
They
Right?
just need to cover the essentials. Like the first time around, they need to cover the essentials. But now they can actually play with the concept. Like,
Right.
they can explore it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
Really
maybe,
use the space,
yeah,
really explore the
exactly.
space.
Exactly. So Slanesh and Doc coming.
Yeah.
This could make way for the warband, the Underworld's Doc warband that we've been hypothesizing. This may fix the hero box.
We'll talk about the heroes. Oh, we'll talk about the doc getting started in a moment. We'll talk about that.
the hero box. Yeah, I don't know. Like, so like what I'm saying is that there could be some really interesting combinations here.
Sure.
Because like the Doc box is right for, let me say it this way. Got a better idea. Maybe we have a dual box that's Slanesh versus Daughters of Cain.
Sure. I mean, it's a funny matchup because it's the army where the heroes do nothing except exist and the troops do all the murdering against
Right.
the army where the troops do nothing except exist to hold points and the heroes do everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, they're just dark mirrors of each other.
Hmm.
I'm I'm excited about all the giant stuff that you mentioned. Like, so we mentioned kicking objectives around and the idea of them being a gold faction and all sorts of stuff. I
Yep.
am not excited by the fact that there's a potential that they're impacted in some way by obviously our, this is a fun show, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it does affect all portions of life, which is the current pandemic of the COVID-19 virus or whatever, and that obviously has a huge part in China. Some of the things like books and terrain and stuff like that come from China, and so international shipping can be very disrupted right now. And so we don't know for sure that at all that that's disrupted, but it remains a possibility that's on the table.
So clearly, Nurgle's gotten another release, just not the kind we want.
Yeah, not the kind we want. So like that's just something I think we have to be aware of. That
Yeah.
it's entirely possible that at some point they are, certain things like that could be delayed,
Sure.
right?
Sure. It's a very real possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would suck. That's unfortunate. I mean, that's the least of concerns in the world
Right. Right.
around something like that, right? There are much more important things to care about.
Yep.
But there you are. I just hope we get the Giants as soon as possible. That's what I'll say. Here's for those things hopefully having already been on a boat and ready to go. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So Rumor Engine.
Rumor Engine. It's a Slanesh Part 2 thing. I'm putting my flag in the ground. That's what it is.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
So Seraphon obviously are on lock. They're on pre-order this Saturday.
Finally.
And they are everything. They are literally the Schrodinger's race.
They're exactly. They're Schrodinger's lizards.
They are both ghosts and real.
Mm-hmm.
So, and those are two basically distinct streams within the army. Let me just say that, like, seeing them like tease some of the rules for the real ones, I'm like, I kind of like that. Like, I kind of like everything that I've seen of the real ones. They don't get to teleport, but I don't care.
Sure.
Like,
no, I thought it was honestly interesting where it seemed like the ghost ones play more of a little KG objective game, probably
like
a little
Peekaboo.
more like they play now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the coalesced ones or whatever they're called, right, where they've
Yep.
stuck around long enough that they've basically become real.
Yep.
And started spawning and whatever.
Yep.
They feel a lot more like savage, in your face, like a lot more melee oriented abilities, right, that kind of thing.
Yep.
I'm still not sure. Obviously, we've only seen tiny parts of the army, so it's very hard to take and to do anything.
Yep.
And we'll do the review obviously at some point after the book comes out. But yeah, I mean, I like everything I've seen. We obviously got the big preview on their terrain piece today, this pyramid,
Yep.
which is theoretically the same size as the footprint of the Bone Tithe Nexus.
Yep.
Okay. So this is another massive terrain piece. Now, it is a spaceship, and I like the ones that, like, I like the pictures they have where it's like the blue light coming out of it as the lizardmen march out on the site, like, yep.
Yep.
They even say, like, whether you want yours. So, and interestingly, this can be, the pieces can literally be inverted, which I'm interested to see how that works. So,
Well,
like, one side is old and looks vine covered, and if you flip the piece, it looks very fresh and clean and spacey, right?
I'm excited because I'm gonna buy one without a Seraphon army, and I'm gonna rip the top off for bits,
Sure.
like the glowy magic,
Mhm.
and then I'm gonna just use the vine covered pyramid as like a terrain piece.
Sure.
I mean, seems to work just fine.
Sure. We saw the rules for the terrain piece. Obviously, we're not going to deep dive on any of that now, but I thought it was pretty good. It's your terrain piece is Captain Toots, basically, from the Stormcast. Yeah, you can just go tooting on everybody.
But you can also hide in it, and
yes,
so, like,
it's also garrisonable.
Yep. We now have garrisonable terrain as part of the world, like as part of the racial terrain, which is not. I mean, that's +1 save, -1 to be hit.
Yep.
Like, that's not too shabby, honestly.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, realistically, if you do hide a little skinky priest in there or something, it makes, and any number of other types of troops in there, it makes him very, very hard to remove.
And let me just say, the rules seem to do really well with Seraphon and teams. Just saying. Not Seraphon. Sylvaneth.
Oh, sure. Yes. So it's, I'm not sure what to think about this. We'll talk a lot more about the terrain later because I'm going to have things to say about that in this new trend.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Hey, they've solved my question. They've given me lore reasons why these things are showing up.
Sure. No, they're spaceships that can land, or they're things that might have, if the
Sure.
lizardman Slán just sat down and decided not to take off again, then they just
Right.
land and vines grow. Sure. Yeah, I'm down
Right.
with that.
Yeah. So we'll talk about it. Yeah, what else do we have about Seraphon? We also we have new getting started boxes, including skinks.
Skinks! Exclamation
So,
point.
I love, like, if both of those stay,
Mm-hmm.
like, man, Seraphon just became, like, the easiest to collect army in the game.
Sure. Assuming that, like, that is to say,
Yep.
assuming that something like Razordons or Salamanders or Kroiger, and yes, I'm going to call them Kroiger, aren't the hottest hotness.
Well, we know the salamanders are, because the embargo on playtesters.
No, that's not. He's not a playtester. He just likes
Oh,
salamanders. I'm going to stop you right there from embarrassing yourself. He is
no.
not.
Hold on. Who
He's
are you
not.
talking
I know exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about Ian, and he's not a playtester.
about? Oh, well, they said that.
Nope, that was somebody else thinking they were, and they're wrong.
Oh, got
That's
it.
why you should research what you read on Twitter, Tom, and not take it all. The internet is full of falsehoods. At
Fair.
any rate, no. The person just is a big lizard fan and happens to like salamanders. At any rate, namely Ian, who's a good guy. So if salamanders and Razordon and Kroigers are real good, then that's going to be an unfortunate reality. So here's to hoping those are all bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they've ever made Finecast stuff that good before.
Sure. Well, and then everybody can just stick to all the good plastic stuff. And yay, right. And that's fine.
By that we mean skinks, because they're really like
the big dinosaurs.
Like the Carnosaur, yes, the big dinosaurs are all stellar sculpts.
Yeah.
But like, heaven forbid people start running Saurus warriors.
I don't know. I mean, it's fine. I don't have a great problem with. My only complaint is that they still didn't just make Saurus warriors and Temple Guard one unit. That should have just been one unit called Sauruses.
Sauruses, right? Saurus Guard. There you go. Done.
Yeah,
I agree. Like, they should have jettisoned the standard Saurus and just went with the Temple Guard. So I love those models. Temple Guard models are beautiful.
They look a lot better with the helmets and the other stuff on, the other accoutrements that they have. So whatever. Time will tell. Man will read book this weekend. So we'll find out. T- 4 days or whatever, and then man reads book 3 days, however long it is. Whenever man reads book.
That'll be exciting. And then Daughters got a getting started box.
They did. So at any rate, just to close out the skink getting started box. It's a good box. I like it. Like, because you can obviously make rippers or pterodactyls, both builds of the Stegodon, and you get a bunch of skinks and a little priesty.
Like, it's everything that I would want from that army, honestly.
Great.
Like,
wonderful getting started box, A+. I give that one a strong thumbs up.
Right.
Now let's talk about the thing that gets an F. Just a giant F.
You're out of your mind.
Okay, the Daughters of Cain getting started box. This is one of the biggest, lies I have seen. This is a lie.
Why are you such a negative Nancy?
That's okay, this is a lie. First of all, it says on the box 9 miniatures. Yes, that is technically correct. Like, if built in that exact way, it is 9 miniatures. But 4 of those 9, nearly 50% of the kit, excuse me, of the box, is one thing, is the Cauldron of Blood. And they're just saying, look, if you build it as the worst one, which the Medusa on the Cauldron is the worst one.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? That is the worst build for that. Hag Queen on Cauldron or Slaughter Queen on Cauldron are far superior in every way, shape, and form.
Currently.
Okay.
We don't, like, if this gets a re-release,
I can only judge based on what's available right now, Tom.
Sure.
Okay, sure. Fair. In the future, anything could happen. Who knows?
Right.
Okay.
I know. Literally, right now, that's what you're doing.
So if I build it as the worst one, then I get 9 miniatures. If, however, I decide to build it as either of the other 2, I only get 8. Because then I've got to put the standalone Kane statue, which, by the
Yep.
way, I've never seen anybody take in an army, literally
Ever.
ever. Okay,
Yep.
I have to put that on top of the cauldron.
I mean, let's be honest. Even Chuck puts it on the base of other things
Sure,
of his Teyrathies.
sure. He just uses it as filler on basing material. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So then you're down to 8 miniatures. All right.
Yep.
And the and like the optimal build is probably the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron. You build it
Yep.
that way, and then
Yep.
a Hag Queen on foot, as the army stands right now. A
Right.
Hag Queen on foot, and then a Medusa on foot, and then the 5 stabby snakes. Now
Yep.
I love stabby snakes. Don't
Yep.
build them as bow snakes because obviously you're gonna get both types of snakes.
Well, unless we have a major point change or a book gets a
I'm
rewrite.
talking about right now.
Sure.
Again, sure. If ifs and buts,
Hey, KO, let me just say this. Here's an example of this. KO getting started box. I laughed people out of the room when that dropped because it was a terrible getting started box
Sure.
at the time. Now, it's some of the best stuff from the army.
Oh, look, Tom. As somebody who has a ton of snakes and has painted an absolute obscene amount of snakes, and
Sure.
has multiple Medusa and Medusa on Cauldron, okay,
Sure.
or
Sure.
on altar rather,
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
I would love that. I would love it if those became hot. Okay, that would be a great world for me to live in. It's all upside for me, baby. I say
Right.
make witch elves and sisters of slaughter terrible. You know how much that'll hurt me? 0, son. That is all win for me. Call up DJ Khaled because all I would be doing is winning, but
Me, on the other hand,
would be in a lot of pain.
I'd have to buy a new army.
Sure. So at any rate, my point is just that is as it stands right now, not a great deal. Not a great starting box. Now,
Well, on top of that, like, by the way, that retail is like 110.
sure, for both of those kits individually.
No, I'm sorry, it's 115. No, 115, 120, somewhere in there. That's like, if it's $100, you're not really getting a discount on that box.
Sure. Yeah. It won't be like yes. It better be the cheapest getting started. They better be out there with like the Stormcast and Corns getting started boxes for that to be valuable.
Right. Right.
All right, and then the Gits one, which is the Loon Boss on foot, a bunch of squigs, and 3 trolls.
Well, again, like, that one's a good deal. Let me just say that. But
You
like,
mean just raw cost wise?
just raw cost. It made me sad though that it wasn't like what I like. I wish it would have just been squigs.
Just
I wish it
sure.
would have been. I wish it would have just been like bouncy squigs, cab squigs, and then mounted cab squig, like a mounted hero.
Yeah.
Like, if they had done that, I'd have been like, you have my attention.
Sure.
But it's not.
They like mixing the squigs and the trolls.
I
Because
know.
they did that in the big box too, on a larger, on like a slightly different scale, obviously.
Interestingly, you could, for $50, you can get a set of the cab squigs and 3 snufflers in the war cry, the new like bundled war cry. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't cover this. So like, for paying the normal cost for the cav, you basically get 3 snufflers for free now.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how they, like, while that box is available, that's just life. And so like, there's actually a really neat set of bundles, like a combination of kits that you could potentially buy now to get like quite a bit of squigs at discount.
Yeah, sure. No, it's one that I just look at and go, okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's my response on these 3 boxes could be summed up as follows: yay, boo, meh. In order.
Sure.
There you go. So, yep, that's the kind of insightful, expert, deep analysis that we deliver here every week. There you go. Yep. Okay.
Good job, Vince.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for, buddy.
And then Wrath of the Ever-Chosen FAQ.
Yeah, the Wrath of the Ever-Chosen FAQ. I mean, not really anything much that we didn't expect.
I mean, I think they intentionally like look for the broken things and then just decide not to answer those to see what kind of consternation they can cause the community.
Sure, because there was a couple things that I expected to be answered that weren't, which was weird. They did answer the Knights of the Empty Throne thing, so we got our answer there. That it was basically exactly as we had said, or I should say this, that you had corrected me on the show, saying, yeah, no, it's just, another Kabbalists, another, Host of the Everchosen, just another one of those, right?
Right.
Which, of course, it was. If you read it, that's exactly what it read like. It just, I mean, that made 100% sense. But was glad to see them
Yeah, it's nice to get
clarify
clarification.
that.
Yeah,
Sure.
totally.
So that's fine. Everything else was more or less what I expected.
Yeah.
I will say obviously I didn't get a chance to really talk about it, but I used the Lurid Haze
Yeah.
invaders at Holy Wars and
You're
really liked it. Well, a 2+ rerolling everything Archeon is
it's pretty good.
he's hard to stop. Let me just say that. He only died one game, and that was when Kenny Lowell hit me with the giant Chaos Tower on Steve's table and did 14 holy wounds to me in one round.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That'll do it. But it was really fun. Like he was darn near unbreakable in that build, is what I'll say.
You're getting the extra +1 from the War Shrine?
No. I didn't have a War Shrine. War Shrines can fail. Lurid Haze gives you as a command ability the ability to just go, I have +1 armor save.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's like it is a very good. You can also pull D3 units off the board and ambush with them, which was
I knew that.
repeatedly super useful.
Like at Holy Wars, that's just winning.
That was super useful everywhere. Having a keeper walk away and then sneak back on in your back line, like that makes you suddenly turn around and pay attention.
Right. That's true.
So at any rate, I enjoyed that. So yeah, I'm very happy with Wrath of the Everchosen. All it made me do is go, man, I really want to see either this type of treatment or something like the Auric War Clans, the Iron Jaws treatment that just came in White Dwarf.
Yep.
For cities, right?
Yeah.
Like more battalions, more interesting ways to build around that. There's so much blue ocean with cities. Can we please explore it, right?
Yeah.
Like the battalions were the greatest failure in Cities of Sigmar, and something like that White Dwarf article you could just fix it all.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
That easy, right? So, but Wrath of the Everchosen is good. I like it a lot. I'm happy with all the options it gives away. It seems like most people I've talked to who've been utilizing it have said, yeah, it's good, but no, like, frankly, there's not really anything in there that I think is busted.
I really think that it really puts Nurgle back on the map in a real way. Like,
I agree. Gives lots and in both giving Nurgle players cool options they didn't have just for fun, and in giving them competitive options as well, and that's a real win.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
Yep. That's the news.
Cool. All right. So that's all of that. I'll finish out here by saying, that don't forget I've got classes teaching the week after Warhammer Fest in the UK. You can find the link down in the description if you're going to be anywhere near London the week after Warhammer Fest. So this is like May 8th, 9th, 10th, that 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. That sounds right. Go check it out. Would love to have you along. It'll be at Dark Sphere in London, and it's going to be a really great time. So hope to see people there. Come check it out. It's going to be a super amount of fun. We're going to do a big monster. We're going to do a character. Oh boy, oh boy. It's going to be a good time.
Sweet.
Cool, man. So, Tom, let's talk about some pick of the week, buddy.
Yeah.
What do you want to share with everybody?
I have a link to share, or an image.
Uh-oh.
I want to promote a product that I saw on the internet today.
Okay.
Or this week. And it's this wonderful, dare I say, panty-dropping aid for the table.
Whoa. That's a powerful statement.
Pro Painted Studios has provided you, the KO and Tempest Eye players, with this tracker.
Okay.
And it helps you track the wounds on your vessels and what models are embarked on those vessels.
Okay.
And it comes in a bunch of different colors. See?
Okay.
How cool is that?
It's great. I'm excited, I guess.
You should be. That thing's amazing.
This is one of those things that hey, game aids are fun. If you enjoy this, Tom, I'm enjoying it for you. I'm happy.
Man, I want like 4 of these sitting next to my table. It makes me want to run more ships just seeing these things.
They look like little angry goats.
Kinda. I can see that.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
So there you go.
All right. Good stuff. Do you have you need to send me the link for that particular Twitter post? That way I can share it up there so people can go find
Sure.
that, or
Yeah.
wherever people can go to find those little
Yeah.
game
And
names.
then shout out to Tina Racer Steve, which who was the brainstorm behind that product.
Nice. Nice. My pick of the week, if you are not satisfied with our amount of lizard talk and you want more hot lizard action, then I'm going to shout out to 2 Plus Tough, who did a nice show live reacting to the big Seraphon news drop and talks about it with his audience for a little while and about the rumors and the initial things being spoiled. So go check that out. I'll link 2 Plus down in the description. Obviously, it's always good to see Doug talk about stuff, and he is excited about lizards. So he, as usual, whenever Doug gets hyped, that means 2 things. 1 means Doug's getting himself a new army, and 2, somebody else is getting an army when he sells off whatever he's working on. So there you go.
It's so true. It's so true.
So go check that out if you're a fan of if you too are stoked for lizards and you need all the lizard action up in your business. This is a place you can go for additional lizard action. So there you go. All right, cool. So Tom,
Yeah.
what you been working on, man? Look at all this free time you've suddenly got. You're a free man again, Tom. The weight is lifted. Hallelujah.
I actually am like I have a bunch of professional stuff I'm working on too.
Boo.
And I'm parenting full time now, which apparently, like when you parent, there's not a lot of time to hobby. Like when you're just doing that full time. Like,
Weird.
Like 2-year, like 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds, they take quite a bit of time. But
I wouldn't know.
Nope. Fire Slayers.
Oh, you're painting up your pizza oven?
No, like it's been mostly painted, but I'm doing more. So yes, I'm making it nicer. So yeah, I did this. I got most of my gun hauler done. You guys saw a little bit. Got some paint on the basing. Yay! And then like the gun haulers have been all but my highlighting steps. Yay! So yeah, things are going well. Built some models, painted some models, rebased like 100 dispossessed. That happened this week. I'm making progress, getting back in the swing of things.
Nice. I see Christian Weir is saying that the lizard WhatsApp is the best right now as the Starborn versus Coalesced Civil War is getting heated. I'm sure. We need some team shirts. I'm Team Starborn or I'm Team Coalesced. That should happen. So that I hope to see that lizard on lizard Civil War just go all the way to a hot war.
It'll be fantastic.
Looking forward to that. For my own hobby time, I finished up my last Golden Demon project, so I was excited about that. That is done. I'll probably share pictures of that out this weekend. I was obviously in Wisconsin hanging out with Sam and Adam and working on one of those. So I did a stream on Sam's stream and so I'll link that down below too because he made that episode available for everybody. So you can go check it out if you want to see Sam and Uncle Adam and myself hang out for a couple hours and chit chat and just talk and paint. It was a lot of fun. Always good to be on his stream. And now I'm working on something more for me, which I'm working on a bust. And she's right there. This is a bust I've had for a long time. And I've wanted to paint her for a while. I like vampire ladies, and she is a really nice vampire lady. It's a nice sculpt. And so I wanted to do something very different because I've been focusing so much on like gaming type stuff for Golden Demon. I needed a good palette cleanser. I needed to just get into a bust and really feel a different type of art. At the same time, I've been working with these that I got very recently. They were waiting for me when I got home, which these are the Chimera Pure Pigment colors. A lot of people have been asking me about them for a long time. I finally did get them, thanks to Emily, who literally was like, hey, they're back in stock. Go order them now. So I did. So thank you, Emily, for helping me out. And I have to say, I freaking love these paints. They're wonderful. They're absolutely fantastic. You do have to mix the colors you want because they are basically just a classic. They're a slightly expanded artist palette is the best way I would describe it.
Hmm.
You're mixing most of what you are. I mean,
Hmm.
all told, there's like 13 colors in the whole thing. So most of what you're doing, you have to mix.
Sounds like a nightmare. Sweet.
It's great because they're beautiful, really intense, really bright, vibrant paints. The red did blow me away. I've heard a lot of people say that they really liked the red, and now I understand why. Because it is a lovely, absolutely rocket intense red. So I was all about that. All right, so that's what's on my plate, and then after that, who knows? I do have. What do I got back here hiding behind me? Oh, he's down on the ground curled up around my feet waiting. Pachow! There he is. Boom! That's right. Kitty cat. Meow. The cat llama is here. He's ready to go. Oh, I'm excited about this guy. I am excited about this guy.
That makes one of us.
You're out of your mind. He's the greatest miniature ever made. Uh, End of discussion. There you
I
go.
mean, he's okay. Like, it's fine. It's fine. That's what I'm gonna say.
He's wonderful. So I am excited to paint him up. Yeah, and then it'll be back to the city's army. So there we go. All right, man. So Tom, let's talk about
My the terrain piece that I'm painting right now.
yeah, you're painting a terrain piece, which is absolutely wonderful, right?
Yeah, I love terrain.
Tell me what you think. High level. Let's
Yep.
start here.
Okay.
I'm going to split this into two discussions, but they're going to overlap inevitably, right?
Sure.
We're not going to be able to do that.
Yep.
So, step one.
Yeah.
What do you think about army terrain? This movement. This isn't a completely new thing. Obviously, Sylvaneth and the associated tree type people have had woods for a long time. Long time.
Yep.
Okay. But somebody looked at that and said, wait a minute. We're leaving money on the table here. Okay.
Right. Legitimately so.
So, and then army terrain became a thing. So overall, what's your take on army terrain? Do you like it? Do you not like it?
By the way, clearly happened. Like, there's a disconnect with the Legion of Nagash because they got tokens while Nurgle got its tree all at the same time. It's fantastic. I'm real mixed on it, honestly. Like, I would be lying if I said I loved it, and I would be lying if I said I hated it. I think that sometimes it is delightful, and I love what it's doing and the image that it's evoking.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there is certainly a place for it. That said, I don't like the fact that we have moved into, like, just like there are the activation wars, there are like the terrain placement wars.
Sure. Are you specifically thinking like Bone Tithe, or
Yeah,
are you talking about even things like the IDK's boat, the Idneth
yeah,
Deacon's
all
boat?
of it,
Yeah.
all of it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like, because both of those things have some pretty dramatic effects on the game, and they're big enough that, like, they can really, and the placement rules are weird enough that they, like, really disrupt the game and the tournament setting. Because, like, you don't know pain until a TO is, like, cautiously laid out a table, and then an IDK player comes along and be like, oh, based on my rules, I'm just going to wall off this section of the board
Sure.
because this is how my terrain works.
Because I can put down 2 full boats.
Right. And you can put them in places that are, like, that really, like, limit movement, like, really constrict movement for some armies.
Sure.
So, like, if you don't fly, you just don't move through that area, and so you permanently have to go around with really not much option.
The pain of like playing Fire Slayers without your Rune Smiter or whoever makes you tunnel, and needing to walk over an IDK ship all the way up and
Right.
over.
Like, up and over, because you have to, like, go up each and down each side.
Yep.
It's literally like 22 inches or something like that.
Sure.
Like, that's what we're talking about here. You are adding an entire dimension to the board that's not there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're measuring it appropriately.
Sure.
And so I just, like, or for example, the Bone Tithe, like, where you're picking up board terrain. Like it's supposed to go down before board terrain even go down. And like the Nexus is huge. And so I just like some of it I love.
Sure, because you like it. You want to like it because it's often like when it's flavorful and interesting and visually compelling and fits with the army and is super cool. It's such a neat thing, right?
Right. Yep. And
would you say it's the execution that often leaves you wanting?
I mean, that's part of it, and part of it is like there's a piece of it that I wish not every army got it for free.
Sure, you're saying all the armies that have it get it. It's
right.
0 points
like,
for all the armies.
So like if your army has it, then you have that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and to me, like I just wish that wasn't the case. I wish there was an opportunity cost. I don't know. I just like I have really mixed feelings on it because like I love some of the terrain.
Mm-hmm.
But like my daughter has Sylvaneth, and she's starting Sylvaneth, and what that means is that she's starting a Living Cities army, because I'm not going to spend $200 on terrain for her.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm just not. And in order to play some of those armies, it's really hard to not have enough trees. So I don't know. That's where I'm at.
That's fair. All right. So here's my 40,000 foot take. On balance, I don't like it.
Okay.
On army terrain.
Sure.
My favorite thing is when I see an army doesn't have a terrain piece. I'm like, yes, wonderful. This is fantastic. I'm so happy to see this.
Sure.
Because, cities, war clans, great. I packed up my whole Slaanesh army to go to that tournament, which is already annoying. Okay. Because I've got to bring a bunch of extra crap for summoning.
Slaanesh is like literally the definition of the worst. Because they have a terrain piece, they have summoning, and they have endless spells.
Yeah. So I pack all this up. I literally got all my stuff ready and set it out in the other room to walk out the door, and then was like, oh yeah, I need that dumb Fane, right? And I spent lots of time painting that Fane and tried to do something really impressive with it.
Yeah.
And it still drives me bonkers. On the whole, here's what I think about the terrain. One, people are often angry when they don't get a terrain piece.
Yep.
That is comical to me. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Let me explain to you why that's wrong. Okay? Why, if you're upset, you should not be. You should switch that emotion for happiness. Here's why. Okay?
Yep.
A book has a certain amount of allegiance abilities.
Yep.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay. Let's call that X. Now, in a perfect world, we could sort of quantify those to all be equal and say that they're all roughly X.
Sure.
We know that's actually not true, right?
Sure. Yep.
Arguably, right now, people like Stormcast are very under allegiance abilitied, right? Okay. But, nonetheless, we can still say that there's some variable that is your total allegiance ability X.
Sure.
And that will generally apply to your army sort of regardless, right? Like, no matter
universally across the table.
Universally across the table, no matter what's happening. Now, there are weird exceptions. People who are ready to actually me in the comments.
Yep.
Such as the Bad Moon. Okay, yep. Where it's like only if it's in this particular table quadrant or whatever.
Don't get me started.
But whatever. Okay. When you have a terrain piece, then necessarily Y amount of X is now sequestered.
Is localized.
To a particular thing you have to put on the table.
Yep. And buy. And your army could just as easily have that ability. Like, it could just as easily... Let's take the most sort of obsequious of them, right? Let's take the Bone Tithe Nexus. Yep.
Okay? Which is a very active thing you get to use every round. It's not just sitting there sort of being a passive effect, right?
Right.
Okay. There's no reason you literally just couldn't have that be an allegiance ability called, like, the March of Catacross.
Or you could be like the Demands of Nagash.
Sure, whatever. Yeah, great. Every round you pick one of these 4 things, you roll a die, this happens.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You have to choose a hero for it to originate from, or it originates from your general, or whatever. I don't care. You can. The point is, it doesn't need to actually emanate from that thing.
Sure.
Right?
It can emanate from any number of other things.
Sure, absolutely.
Yep.
So, like, it necessarily sequesters part of your allegiance ability into a physical thing on the table that can be walked away from that has limitations.
Yep.
Okay.
True.
All right. So, that's one. When you look at somebody like Cities who doesn't have that, I'm like, great. No, I'll just take all this stuff for all my troops all the time, regardless of where they are. Sounds great to me.
Sure.
Okay. Now, two, many of them drive me crazy. There are a few exceptions. Things that I like are, ironically, the Nurgle tree. I hate the design. It grosses me out. And absolutely sets off all of my fear, like my tryptophobia or whatever it is.
Yep.
But that being said, it's a rather unobtrusive piece. I don't like its effect. I find it silly that it makes Nurgle run and charge. The slow, plodding defensive army should not have run and charge on their terrain piece. It's
for their entire army. Because that's what it does. It gives everybody that's Nurgle run and charge.
Just a within 7 inches. Like, again, completely nonsensical effect out of this thing.
Sure.
But, it makes sense. That is to say, I like its look. It's not huge, doesn't super get in the way. It's neat how they can summon more. It makes sense for the creeping plague of Nurgle. All of that works. Good.
Yep. It rocks.
Super fine.
And how it's showing up on the table.
Yes. Everything up to but not including its ability works. Even though I like even the mortal wound splashing around it makes sense. That's fine.
Right.
Cool. Herdstone. Herdstone I love. I look at the Herdstone and I'm like, yep, it's this thing that they drug to the battle site and stood up. It's got big sticks on the back where they clearly pushed it up, right? And stood it up to have this fight around it. And as the game goes on, they throw their own little dudes on it on the pyre. And as it builds up with energy, it has sort of a growing radius of effect.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. And again, not overtly large, not overtly obtrusive, can kind of be put where you need it. Neat. Still not perfect. It should probably start at 9 inches and not 6. Right? I think that's sort of the universally agreed fix that would make the rend actually more impactful on the game. Just even that 3 inches would actually make quite a big difference over the course of the game. But good. Most of the rest I could just jettison. That, like, almost to a terrain piece. The Fane is just a cute toy for nothing. It didn't need to be there. The army doesn't need it. Why? The Skull Throne, same story. It's just literally facilitating something that they might as well just do. Right?
Yep.
Like, why? Why and why? The pizza oven, same story. I don't like it. I don't like that the priest just summons a pizza oven out of nowhere. That's no. I'm going to give a hard no on that one.
And you know what it does? Just gives bonuses to that priest to continue casting.
Right.
Like, functionally, that's what it does. Like, yes, you can once per game, blah, 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 reroll saves of 1. No, I mean...
You're right. Sure. No, I understand. Again, these could just be allegiance abilities. The Corn Throne, nope. Yet again, why? Why is this thing here? Why does it look like it? Right? Why? Although, I will say... The bone altar and the skull altar, whatever they are, the FEC and the corn one, at least have the decency to be, again, rather unobtrusive.
Right.
I
would agree with that. Yep.
The Maw Pot is underwhelming for what it does.
Sure.
It just, like...
It exists.
It can, and once in a while, it'll heal a wound. Okay?
Yep.
Great, fantastic, fun times. We don't even, and then we get into, like, the real bad ones. The ones that just, like, I would completely remake from the ground up because I think they're honestly problematic. Like, the Bone Tithe Nexus is fine. It's on the border. It just needs to be shrunk. Like, They should have just went to the ZCAD file and said reduce down to 70% and fine. I don't hate it. It's a perfectly fine set of effects. It's one of the ones that grokks the most. Its effects actually align the best with the army. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, what it's actually doing actually feels like it's aiding the army in a real way that makes sense both narratively and mechanically.
Sure.
Most of them feel like they were just kind of shoved in there, right? Like, well, we've got this square peg of terrain and this round hole of this army that we have to set up just if you hammer it hard enough, right?
Yep.
The IDK ship drives me bonkers. Because it's so big and you can set up 2 of them and it's just so impactful. The Oh, the null holes are in the previous category, by the way. I'm just like, whatever. Like, I don't hate them. I don't love them. They're there and
Really?
they exist.
Like I consider the null holes one of the most powerful ones
They certainly are. I don't
because
disagree.
like it's 3 pieces of cover for heroes if you want that, combined with teleportation, so like army mobility and magic bonusing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
arcane,
I don't
like
disagree with any of that. It's
yeah,
yes, it's all good and also threatening and all this. It's probably doing too much, honestly, is my point.
right,
When you compare that to something like the mall pot, I'm like, what are we even talking about here, guys?
right, right.
Right.
Yep.
Um, so, and that comes from the heart of a Skaven player, right? Like, I dig them. I think they're thematically awesome. I think the null
Sure.
holes are thematically awesome. I just think I don't know that they needed to be there. They're probably up toward the good category. I should have done like an official ranking of this, right?
Sure.
So like at the top would be the best one would be like Nurgle trees, which is horribly ironic coming from me, right?
Yep. It is.
Null holes would be up around there, that kind of thing. The IDK boats are just so large and so awful to just be against and be there and be in the way. They're the worst kind of fiddly. You can't balance models on them. They cause all these weird measurements. It's insane that you get 2 full boats if you want.
And on top of all of that, they have the type of rules that are the worst, which are if you're within range during this phase, roll this dice. If that affects, then this happens.
Yeah, sure. And then obviously the Sylvaneth are still the worst. The trees are the worst. We've talked about this fix before, right?
Yep.
So the thing the thing I want the most is to play armies that don't
Don't.
have that just don't have terrain. To be completely honest, I find it to be in almost all ways and in the vast majority of cases a negative.
Well, and like, let me just say, one of the most powerful things that you can do is shape a battlefield. It is like from a rule standpoint, and this is why mobility is so strong. Is that like extreme mobility functionally reshapes the terms of engagement,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and that's functionally what terrain does in some sense. Some are going to be more egregious about this than others, but they reshape the battlefield, and sometimes in dramatic ways, like breaking line of sight or making units run 20 inches, just to get over top of them. And so it's egregious
Sure.
in some instances. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. So Alex in the chat said, I feel personally attacked. I love my boats. Hey, if I was an IDK player, I'd love my boats too. I'd love having one of the most abusive terrain pieces in the game at my disposal. It'd be fantastic. And by the way, nobody should feel personally attacked by this. If you have a different opinion on these terrain pieces, of course, as always, this is just us pontificating and sharing our opinion. But again, like I would answer Coach like this. Coach said, I wish that my cities had some kind of outpost thing. My answer would be, cool. What would you like to give up?
Right.
What don't you want in your city's army anymore?
You want to give up your endless spells?
Yeah, you want to give up the endless spell ability, maybe your adjutant, your ability to bodyguard. Which of these things or 2 of these things would you like to lose to have outpost rules that then only work within if you garrison that outpost? Pick your thing.
Right.
Because that's how that works. Again, there's only X of allegiance abilities. And if you sequester part of those rules,
Unless you're KO.
it's just you're going to lose part of it, right?
Right.
So there you go.
Okay. So that's your point.
Charles Hullum says the Herdstone beats the Nurgle tree. It has much more ludo narrative consistency. I don't know.
Well, here's the deal.
Yeah,
When you
no,
read
I'm going to agree with him. Charles
Really?
has sold me. Yes, he's right because he's making a ludo narrative dissonance point, and he's absolutely correct that the Nurgle tree creating a run and charge bubble does not. It creates ludo narrative dissonance. He's right. He's absolutely right. Whereas the Herdstone groks completely every element of the Herdstone, from its design to its placement to its effect.
Why are they getting more rend?
Why are they? Because the Herdstone literally breaks down civilization around it. So armor is rusting, manifesting in the fact that the rend is increasing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. You can say that's a mechanical stretch in some way, but I'm okay with it. Like, I like that. That's a story that works. Okay.
For you, sure.
technology and all those sorts of things are breaking down. Things are rusting. Entropy is affecting the world.
So then why do guns still work fine?
Because it can't affect everything, Tom.
Well,
Because
my
what a
point
gun
that
is, this is a good mechanical representation of that type of concept.
why is it weakening dragon scales?
Because dragons still have armor on them. There you go. That's why.
Why
I've seen a Stardrake. He has armor.
Why is it not weakening Beastmen armor? Because if they have armor, then that's like civilization.
Have you seen them? They're mostly naked. It's super.
It doesn't
fine.
matter. But that's my point. Is that like I understand your rationality, but man, there are exceptions. Like
sure.
Like yeah.
So, that's my point. Like at the very least, what I would hope to convince you, dear viewer, of is that if you are one of the armies that did not get a terrain piece,
you should not feel bad.
You should not feel bad. You didn't miss anything. You lost nothing and only gained.
You literally gained money. You gained transport space.
I mean, in fact, let me put it this way. You ready?
Yeah.
Terrain pieces are gift cards. What would you rather have?
Money or gift cards?
$10, 10 crisp dollars, or whatever your local currency is. Okay? Yeah. 10 euros, 10 whatever. Okay?
Yep.
Or a gift card for $10 to one store of your choice.
Yep.
Because that's what a terrain piece is. It says you get some special rules if you're standing right here.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
That's it. This is $10 as long as you're at Applebee's. Everywhere else in the world, this is not $10. But if you want an Incredible, you're set. Okay? That's
Touché.
it.
Touche. Yeah. No, I hear that.
There you go.
Okay, so what do you think about endless spells? Because clearly you feel really strongly about terrain.
I do. I really do.
By the way, this whole show, the premise is let's let just Vince rant about what he wants to rant about. So continue, Vince.
Well, no, that's fine. I've talked for a while. What do you think about the Army Endless Spells? It should be back to you, Tom.
I think that they are. I think that they are as bad, if not worse, than terrain.
Okay, interesting.
Because what it does is that it is predominantly tied to army composition, and when it's not, so what I mean by that is this: it is something that is only for a narrow, small portion of your army, and some armies don't even get to play in that space.
Okay,
and then on top of that, so it's like. It's only affecting, like, it's only working with a small portion, and then of that small portion, you're paying points, and so then it's a larger cost, like a larger sink. And then you're buying a box of 3 models that you may use 1 out of. Maybe. And then, so points, multiple models, most of the time junk rules on most of them. And then the bias against certain armies. Obviously, I'm like particularly cognizant of this being a dwarf player.
Sure, but I mean, one of your dwarf armies did get a bunch of cheater better than endless spells.
Which then leads me to my next problem is that then what it does is it carves out another rules space for like weird interactions. Like, yes, I do have these endless prayer things, but they like go away, and it's created another mechanic where like if I want to be able to persist them, I have to like or make them reliable in any way during the back-to-back turns, because like that movement from like casting it to then it going away potentially at the end of your turn, like if you're on the bottom of a turn, it always has a chance of disappearing at the end of your turn.
Sure.
And then now you have to invest additional resources into that thing to make it function, and like so I just like I had to laugh about this literally today, because like I was moving some endless spells on one shelf of my painted stuff, and then I had another shelf that was my unpainted things, and I was moving things, and I was like, there are a lot more unpainted endless spells than painted.
Sure.
And like by that I mean like a 8-to-1 ratio at least between malign sorcery, between forbidden power, or
Forbidden
forbidden
Power.
power, malign sorcery, forbidden power, and then all of the racial ones.
Sure. It's a big list now.
It's a big list, and in general, like most of them are bad.
So I want to leave the generic ones off the table because theoretically those are open to everybody, and that's a separate discussion. So the army specific ones, what I want to hone in on, right? We could have a whole different show just literally on the generic endless spells.
Sure, but my point is that there's just so many bad ones, and there's so many that we have that just don't get used that it just feels superfluous.
Okay, fair enough. All right,
and hold on, I have one more thing.
Go ahead.
And like I know people don't like me beating this drum, but like what happens when we rotate out endless spells? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so like today I like blew the signal horn on the fact that like that Balewind Vortex has disappeared from the GW website and is not being stocked by retailers anymore.
Okay.
You cannot order it from anybody that has stock, you can order it, but like it can't be back ordered from like warehouses and stuff like that. Like it doesn't show up on the sheet anymore. So as of right now, Balewind Vortex has been discontinued. So this is a endless spell that you've bought that doesn't work anymore. Like when
it could theoretically perhaps go away in the future,
unless
perhaps.
they re-release it or rebundle it,
or
but
whatever.
They're not going to make these bundles in perpetuity.
Sure.
Like here's a news flash. Like when we move out of the Soul Wars, malign sorcery probably goes too.
Sure. All those endless spells might rotate or something.
All those endless spells might rotate, or we may lose some of them and keep some of them, or like who knows what happens when like molds break, like, and it's not a product that is like has a high incentive structure for repurchasing. It's one of those like fire and forget purchases. Once you have it, you don't need it anymore. And so like it's not something that ultimately like they're really incentivized to reproduce later. So like I just like, so to me that's all the signal wordings of like a limited release product.
It could also the thing, I mean, maybe that's a lot of speculation is what I'll say.
Sure, but yeah. Or like an army book that gets released and they just decide to not re-release the endless spells that time.
Sure. All of these things are possible, but we have no evidence that any of them are the case yet. And then as of right now, they're as stable as anything else.
And then there's the Hammer Hurricane.
What about the Hammer Hurricane?
Do I need to say more?
You're just saying because it's real bad?
It exists.
Sure. All right. So here's my take on the endless spells.
Yeah.
I like them as much as I dislike the terrain. I'm completely the opposite on this one.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
I love them. They're great. Keep making them forever. Let's do this. All right. Now that doesn't mean there's not problems.
Sure.
As people have pointed out. Oh, by the way, we're just real quick to return to something. I didn't mention the Loon Shrine. The Loon Shrine is.
Have you played against one?
Yeah, I've played it against people who have a Loon Shrine. Yeah.
Okay.
Twice now, in tournaments, and then many times more beyond that. Like I've played it twice against it in tournaments. The Gits don't show up often as in tournaments. I don't know why. Not enough people play Gits in tournaments. I want to see more Gits players. It's always a fun game. The Loon Shrine needs to be shrunk down. It's too big. It's again one of those things. It's like turn that down to 80% in ZCAD and then do that. And its effect is kind of annoying because it only hits the goblins. I wish it did more to. I wish they just didn't do as much with the Bad Moon. Like if I was rewriting Gits, I would way reduce what the Bad Moon does, and I'd have the Shrine do more. If that's what we were going to honestly do.
Right.
Assuming you told me, Vince, you've got to keep the Shrine. I'd say great. Let's have the Shrine affect all sort of types of troops in the army, and I'd have the Moon do a lot less. Because at least the Shrine is there. you can bet on it existing. Okay. Right. Null hole. What was the call on null holes? They're fine. They're in like the upper fine category. What holds them back is they're honestly probably too good. Being able to pay 0 points for that is pretty decent.
0 points for 3 pieces of arcane terrain.
0 points for 3 pieces of arcane cover granting, deadly to your enemies, teleporting terrain is a pretty good deal where I come from, and that's in a book with where the X of Allegiance abilities is already pretty strong. Okay, so endless spells. Why do I like them so much? Well, I'll tell you why, Tom. Because they don't suffer from any of the same problems as terrain. Here's problem number 1 that they just answer right away. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. Number one. Uh, it they are completely optional. I've
Sure.
never felt compelled to run them. I painted a couple of them. You know why? I've painted some of them. I painted my Slanesh ones. I painted the big mirror because I thought that one was cool. I painted
Be-
all the Slaves of Darkness ones because I liked the
be-
look of them.
because you like the models. You've painted them because you like the look of the models.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And I never, there's armies I have that had on the spells that I was like, nah, didn't buy them. Pass. Don't like them, don't want them, don't need them. And that's just it. Don't need them. And that's the huge difference. My
Sure.
only problem with them is when some of them cross into near auto pick territory.
Yep.
Okay. Which admittedly, there aren't a huge number of, but they exist. I think you mentioned the Hammer Hurricane. Okay.
Yep.
But the Comet is a good example of something right now where it's like, well, you could take it, you could not.
Right.
Whatever. It's a
Yep.
cool spell and it's not a cool spell and it's pointed about right and some people use it and have fun with it and some people don't and there you go.
Sure.
Great.
But
But then you've got the FEC Chalice
sure.
and you've got the Bone Daddy hit
The nightmare.
thing that hit Nightmare Predator or whatever it is.
Yep.
Which are both, I've never seen a list without them. Now, I will say, in defense of the OBR spell that is a near auto include, it is also an auto include because oftentimes that army will have like 60-ish points left.
Right. And there's just nothing you can buy.
And there's just nothing you can buy for that amount of points because they literally can't even buy command points, right?
Right.
So they it's actually really nice to have a spell that's valuable that they can take. So I don't hate that in that case. I think it actually serves a pretty nice function in the army. Things like Demon Rift are probably, are too good. I mean, that's, there's Demon Rift. So excusing the army ones that are honestly too good, which there aren't many of, to be fair. Okay. They have released a lot of army specific endless spells.
Yep.
And there aren't many of them that we look at and go, you've got to have that in your army, right? Where you start and go, it automatically includes this.
Okay, so which ones would fall into that? Like, so Warp Lightning Vortex for a season was like that.
It was, but it's not now. Many,
Right.
many Skaven people don't do that anymore, right?
Right.
I probably the Chalice, the Predator, the Demon Rift right now.
Right.
Are there any others? I'm trying to think if there are any others. I'm going through like all of them in my head. I can't think of any others. I'm sure I'm missing one.
Within Fire Slayers, the wall.
I've seen plenty of Fire Slayers people who don't take the wall.
And they're wrong.
Would you really defend it though as an auto include?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because what the wall does right now is it not only does it cut line of sight, it makes it so that like you can be in combat with somebody and not have line of sight to them because of the way the wall is ruled right now.
I understand that. I'm still not sure. I bet if we asked, 10 sort of top tier Fire Slayers players, 6 or 7 of them would say that the wall is in there. But I don't think it'd be a universal statement. So it's probably a majority opinion.
I think you'd be surprised. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
So I think
if you're a Fire Slayers player, do you consider the wall to be automatic as a take? Either say it right now in the chat or put it down in the comments. I'm interested.
The Sylvaneth don't have any. Trying to think. Look at my other armies. Nurgle doesn't have any. Obviously, Doc doesn't have any. Moon Clan, they don't. Although, like the Cauldron gets pretty close.
No, but I mean, theirs are good. I think Gits are a great example of nailing it. Yeah. Because all of them are interesting. They do kind of neat stuff. Scuttletide's cool. It can be fit in lists. The Cauldron's cool. It can fit in lists. Like, that is one where they hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, like I want to run Mushroom. Like, it's probably not a good idea, but I want to run Mushroom. I want to run Moon. Like, I want to run those things, even though they're probably not the wisest.
Sure, which is fine. Like, the want to run is different than must run.
Totally agree. Night Haunt you can just leave them at home. But the 2 of the 3 Stormcasts, you can just leave those at home. Yeah, I mean, dwarves don't have anything. Cities obviously don't have anything. IDK doesn't have anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it feels like I love them because they're optional. They're cool, fun models. You can take them. You can use them if you like. If they're a thing that compels you to play them,
Right.
right? If you look at them and go, yeah, okay, I think that's a cool thing, then you can do that cool thing,
Right.
right? And it's fine. But if you're literally the type of player who's like, man, I've got my army and I don't want to spend any more money and I don't really need these
Right.
spells, then in most cases you can just great, don't buy those spells. Because they're optional,
Right.
I just all of my complaints disappear,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
Exempting in the cases where they become so good that they just become auto includes. And what that
Sure.
usually means is that they're mispointed,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like the things I just said, like Chalice just probably needs to go up, the Bird probably needs to go up, and the Demon Rift needs to be either go way up or better, just fix the stupid scroll. Just cap the wounds it can deal. So it's not running around dealing like 40 mortal wounds in a single turn.
Right. Right.
Like that, just fix the scroll. That seems fine. Okay. Look, I'm not going to lie and not say I haven't played Demon Rift a few times. I have. And I got Demon Rift played against me. It didn't do much of anything except give over the weekend at Havoc. You know what it did? It gave me a lot of depravity, and then Archeon went, no.
Yeah.
Get this out of here.
Yeah, like I think my problem is like on one hand, it create like for me, if if I have an army or I'm going to have an army and I don't get endless spells, I feel like I've been shorted. Okay.
Again, I don't, and that's another thing. I never feel like if they don't show up, I don't care.
But well, because it's like having another unit, but a unit that normally fits into the list building cracks. So it's actually a really helpful unit.
Sure.
Um.
Oh, there you go. Somebody mentioned Hexgorger Skulls as being a potential on that.
Corn is solid. Yeah, like Corn has solid options. I'll just say that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say they're an auto. I feel like Hexgorger's right in the right place. Where Corn,
Yep.
much like Gits, has some cool, compelling options that I think are good.
Yeah. But I mean, what I'll say is that I understand the hate or the frustration of Seraphon players right now, because like we don't know what they're like. Truly what the effect of their like bound endless spells are for their predatory stuff. But the fact that they didn't get endless spells is a feel bad. Because
is it though?
It is. If I were in their shoes, I would feel that way because I would want endless spells.
God.
Especially if I'm a wizard, because it's just more options. Because it's not taking away anything. Because this is the same type of thing with it's the same logic with in reverse of the terrain. You're not losing anything by their existence.
Sure.
Okay. You're only gaining more options. You can always choose to just not pay the points for them or not buy the kit. But it only adds to your army and only adds to your options. And so when you don't get them, it creates a feel bad, period. Ogres, like they would have loved endless spells. Who knows what that would have looked like for a Maul or whatever.
Sure.
As my Doc, as my Nurgle, I feel the loss of those options, whatever those options hypothetically may be. Again, it's a Schrodinger's box situation where it's like they could be the most amazing thing in the world, but I don't get it. Okay. Yeah. So for me, it creates this feel bad. Or heaven forbid, you're an army that doesn't have wizards.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, my take on that is twofold. One, I would much rather be Cities or Seraphon, where my ability is to just take the whole list of generic things and make them real good, right?
Like, I hear that. I do.
Because so many predatory spells, if they can't hurt you, let's assume that's more or less how it boils out, okay?
Well, obviously, what it means is that you get to move them. Like, they can't move your predatory spells.
Sure. Geminids and stuff becomes absolutely backbreaking if you can fire them off with no fear that they come back on you.
Sure.
That is, I can't even guess at the extra points that's worth. Because Geminids and those other predatory spells, the reason they're costed like they are is because they're predatory and they can come back and bite you in the face. Right? And that to me is, again, I don't have this. I mean, I suppose what it seems like you're saying to me, Tom, is this feeling of they get a thing, I want a thing too.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
I don't want a thing. I'm happy with my army. That's why I played the army. That's just extra sauce, man. A Sunday is a Sunday, dude. The fact that I didn't get a
Some
couple
people,
colorful sprinkles on there.
right? But some people get sprinkles, or some people get fudge, or
Yeah.
some people get caramel, but you don't. You know, like again,
Yeah, you
KO,
still get a Sunday. You're just missing one topping. KO, get your dumb bottle. That's your solution. Enjoy your bottle.
God, no. The problem with KO is that you have to, in order to do that, you have to build a certain way.
Sure.
So if you do
You
that,
gotta have the bottle.
You have to have the bottle, which means that you either can't take a. Oh, don't get me started. Yeah, like the bottle is just the worst.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I mean, in my estimation, Seraphon, like that's just childhood silliness. Is the best way I could say it. Not the KO thing. The KO thing we can have a separate discussion about when you don't have it at all and no opportunity to get it. That's a different story. I'll grant you the KO thing. I'm talking about like Seraphon and cities here. Okay,
Right.
specifically these kinds of people, where it's
Right.
like, well, I mean, like you have twins.
I do.
When you give them things,
Yep.
do you always have to make sure that they're completely equal? Like if they get hot cocoa with marshmallows, do they both have to have exactly 5 marshmallows? Because if one has 6 and one has 5, does the one get angry?
Yes.
Does that frustrate you because that's acting like a silly child?
It frustrates me because as a parent, I want to provide that for them. And what's even more egregious here is that like my son has a dairy allergy,
Uh-huh.
and so I can't give him ice cream.
Sure.
And so like if some like my kids want ice cream, that's fine. But oftentimes like if we're out in public, we're not home where we can give him a dairy-free option. Then he doesn't get it. You know, and that's the equivalent of like the dwarf situation, who they just can't get it.
Sure. Like I said, I'll call the KO thing out separate. But the whole like Lizardman and Seraphon thing, or sorry, Seraphon and Cities thing. Again, these guys came out way better. You didn't get sprinkles. You got twice as much ice cream. Shut your face.
I don't. I mean,
What are you talking about?
Maybe.
And by the way, those 3 spells or whatever that come in that box, they're
Yep.
always those 3 spells. Period.
Sure.
And they could rewrite the rules, or they could change the points, but it's always going to be those 3 spells.
And you're going to say that the list for KO or for
Seraphon and Cities is endless.
is endless because it's always expanding.
Yes.
Sure. Yep. No, I don't disagree with that. Like
So-
I acknowledge that.
So I mean, to me,
But I stand by the fact that I understand their frustration. Like that they want to be they want the special toy club.
sure.
And being the like they want something that is theirs, right? Like this is part of it. This has to do with identity, like of people, like how they're like that. Even though the rules may be stronger and the list is ever expanding,
Mhm.
right?
Tom, you're literally the clapping emojis right now. I love it. Keep going.
They're not theirs.
Uh-huh.
Like there's nothing that they get to call their own in that.
Sure.
And I understand it. Like but from a power standpoint, I'm just like I don't care about any of that. But I understand where they're frustrated.
Got it.
And what I hate isn't like, and this is what frustrates me about endless spells. It isn't that it's that inequality exists.
Okay.
Like, and that's what frustrates me is that like baked into the system is inequality.
Sure.
Because some people are gonna like just don't ever get this stuff, and some people get these weird rules, and like armies are always going to be unequal and stuff like that. That's fine, but it's the same type of thing with terrain in a sense. Like
all I can hear in my head right now is 10% of the armies have to go to endless spells. We got to take the endless spells, redistribute them to the other armies. All right. At any rate,
I'm gonna get a little bit Bernie up in here.
Sure.
No, like I just
that's all I could hear because you said inequality like 50 times. No, look.
That's
Okay.
my frustration. Like,
Fair enough. At an
like-
emotional core.
Yeah.
As an unemotional robot that I am with a heart that is fashioned out of a solid block of ice,
Sure.
I can understand supposedly what these humans are feeling. Okay.
Sure.
I don't like. I can imagine it. Let me put it that way. I don't understand it. Uh,
Yep.
Again, I didn't get endless spells for my Iron Jaws, and I was like, great, wonderful. Like,
Right.
I couldn't have been happier, right? Because I don't even like the caster. I don't even like taking him. The last thing I want is to have more feel bad
Well,
that
that's what
I didn't take these other spells.
I agree. No, I totally agree because like it feels like, or it seems like, on every level, it only creates feel bads
Sure, I
because
understand what you're saying.
what that means is that you're forced into, like, let's say you have a really good awesome spell, then it creates this weird incentive structure where you feel forced into taking units that you don't want to take.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think about Doc. Like, heaven forbid that Doc had endless spells,
Sure.
because then you'd be forced to take these single casters, these bad single casters,
Or lots of Doomfire Warlocks, for sure.
or lots of Teamfire Warlocks,
Which would be kind of awesome.
which are also single casters. And so, like, uh, yeah,
It's fine.
Yeah.
My ultimate answer is, but the only honest problems I have with the endless spell stuff, I like them
Sure.
all. I think they're fun. I think they're cool. I think they're totally optional. And like I said, that's why I like them. I stand behind that.
Yeah.
And when I don't get them, I don't care. Because, again, they're sprinkles. I bought the sundae, not the sprinkles. So there you go. Now,
I'm just going to say this. Hold on, I'm going to interrupt you. I was
yes.
going to type it out, but it's worth saying in the comments. James Domus, I agree with you. I do.
For the
And
Foot of Gork thing.
Yeah, Foot of Gork to me was a total miss. It was a 100% miss. If I could have been more frustrated at GW for anything this year, it's the absence of Foot of Gork. Like, why? That thing writes itself. Come on, man.
Couldn't think of two more. That was it. We had one good one. You're going to pay $50 for a box with just a foot in it?
I would.
Okay. Well,
I
send that comment and fill it out on the survey.
I paid $60 for a stupid loon shrine. I mean,
Sure.
that doesn't actually affect any of the units that I was running.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So, now, the things that honestly bother me is the non-interactivity of the endless prayers.
Right. I agree with that. Yep.
That's the only part that gets in my craw to a condition. Now, again, power-wise, I think honestly the armies with the endless prayers right now, so let's Khorne and Fire Slayers, right, are fine. It's not like I feel any of those are just out, OMG, so broken, BBQ, what are we going to do, right? That's not what I'm saying. I just don't like the non-interactivity of it, right? That there's no place I can be, no thing I can do that I can affect whether or not this thing emerges onto the table. And by the way, it's the same for you. There's very little in both those armies you can do to decide whether or not they stay around. I mean, you can be near your shrine or whatever, right? And that gives you sort of +1 in both cases.
And alternatively, there's very little I can do to endless spells that are on the table in those armies. Or at least, let me say this, in Fire Slayers.
Yeah, I was going to say that's...
In Khorne, you can burn...
There's lots of things you can do in Khorne with the things that are there.
Okay, yeah.
They have dispels falling out their yang.
I'm sorry then. But, like, once an endless spell is on the table, there's just not a lot you can do in Fire Slayers. You don't have a lot of options.
Fair enough.
And, like, yeah, like, ugh.
I think it'd be fine if we just kind of waved our hand and said, you can dispel any endless spell or prayer, and we didn't have this sort of end of turn go away thing, and you can unbind in some way. Like, I don't know what that looks like, but I would like it more if either A, everything was on the same system. That would be my honestly best case scenario.
We're sitting in a second edition D&D psionics issue right now.
Right. I don't need psionics and magic to be separate. I'm super fine with it. Okay. Like, just, they all work the same. Dispel magic, dispel psionics, and dispel psionics dispels magic. It's fine. Okay. You can all work the same.
Yep.
So
Agreed.
That's number one. That would be my most preferred world. Okay.
Sure. I would agree with that. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
If not that, then I would also accept as a fallback something that many people in the comments have mentioned that I think is my second favorite world, but still better, where priests interact, right?
So even if wizards don't get in, like so, priest magic becomes a superior version.
Well, no, like priests can unbind other priests, and priests can dispel other
Oh,
priests. Priests
got it.
interact,
Okay.
okay, as
Priest
they counter prey to their gods against each other, right?
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
the challenge there is obviously lots of armies don't have priests, whereas
Right.
every army has wizards. I understand there are exceptions, but it's not the same number. I haven't looked at this off the top of my head. I need to go do like a keyword search for how many armies lack priests, but
Right.
my suspicion of it is it's higher than wizards, right? Like I can think of several armies that don't have priests off the top of my head.
Right.
And there aren't that many anymore that don't have wizards. Like
Nope.
actually in faction.
Nope. Like
Right.
most of them do.
Yeah.
Like even Stormcast now.
Sure. Sure. I mean your big examples are the dwarvy people, right? Your KO
Yep.
and your fire slayers.
And Corn.
And so like again, so it'd be somewhat challenging because again, we don't have as many priests, but at least it would still be more interactive.
Right.
Right.
Because heaven forbid that you have a player drop a firewall in that 8-inch gap between terrain that is now unpassable. 100%. There is no number of inches that you can go
Sure.
to go over that.
Yeah. On foot.
On foot.
Yeah.
Right.
But again, I think that's honestly it's a minor complaint is my honest answer. It's one of those things where I'd go like, well, if I was aiming at a perfect world, this is how I'd fix it.
Sure.
Right. Because again, there are systematic challenges, the lack of priests in the game game wide. But again, that could be fixed over time.
I'm not gonna lie. I would just love it if priests and wizards could basically unbind, like unbind worked against spells or prayers.
Sure. Again,
Because,
that's my perfect world. Just put it all on one system.
right? Because
We
then you
didn't
don't
need
get,
two
like,
separate
Daughters of Cain.
subsystems for this.
You don't get like Daughters of Cain like housing people with all their prayers that can't be stopped.
Right. Right. You don't just get all sorts of weird things. Like Archeon can, with a wave of his hand, clear an endless spell from the board. Right?
Yep.
It's just a thing he can do. He can just be like, no, I don't like that. That's gone now. Because I have all the power of the Chaos Gods at my disposal. I am the Grand Marshal of the Apocalypse, the Lord of Chaos Undivided, the Ever-Chosen. Right? And
then you're
yet,
like,
some dumb dwarf is like, lava-spitting monster, and he's like, there's nothing I can do about this.
Right.
This
And
just exists, and there's nothing I can say about it.
It's in my way, and I can do nothing.
Yes. So, again, the perfect world here is then we don't have to worry about the number of priests in a faction or trying to shoehorn in priests where they don't belong or wizards where they don't belong. We can just have some factions only have priests and they have whatever they do. And we have some factions only have wizards and we have some factions have both and everybody's on the same system.
And I don't mind that, like, and I don't know how this would work with unbinds. Because like you have the casting value versus like auto cast on 2+ or 3+ or whatever. Like I don't know what that looks like.
You'd have to rewrite the whole function.
You have to rewrite the interaction. But for those hypothetical, so I hear that 40K may be getting a new edition. So for the hypothetical AOS edition update that happens in a couple of years,
sure,
this might be something to write towards.
Sure, and I would argue that's probably several years away, but sure. Like I mean, they're going to want to trot this out for a while.
You're 2 years. You're just over 2 years out.
That's probably the That's probably the. No, I said the other way around. That's probably the liberal estimate.
I mean, maybe.
Just because putting themselves on a treadmill isn't like puts a lot of pressure on, right? So
sure.
At any rate, not what we're discussing. So. Yeah, I mean, that would be my general feeling on those things. Like, sure, on a long term, ideally, just push them all toward one thing.
Yep.
And that's a great world. And if armies keep coming out, here is my real ask. I don't want them, like you talk about having them missing. See, I'm on the opposite side of the coin, which is the last thing I want is for them to shoehorn these things in.
Sure.
That bothers me far more than when they're not there.
Right. You just want it to be natural, whatever it is.
Yes. Again, the Nurgle tree and the Herdstone. Part of the reasons I like them is because they feel very natural as extensions of the voice, the actions, the nature, the very narrative of that army.
Sure.
Right?
Yep. You can't read a book about Nurgle without talking about Nurgle's corruption.
And his plague garden and his creeping sense of the way he warps the world around him. Right?
Right. Yep.
And endless spells are just this weird thing. They suddenly existed because of the Necroquake and magic went wild. Okay, fine. So they're all out in the world. And then armies started getting them. Well, okay, I guess. They just figured out how to tap into this and make it their own.
And then buildings started showing up on the battlefield.
And then yes. Right. And the thing I don't want to see is these things just shoved in because they feel like they're supposed to be shoved in.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
When it comes to either these terrain or endless spells, yes, maybe sometimes you won't get them. And yes, we can all stretch our imagination, okay, to fit anything if we want to. But you know when you're stretching, okay? You know. Like, just be honest with yourself, okay? When we're talking about the KO terrain piece being the Admiral, G.I. Joe battleship aircraft carrier.
Yep.
We're stretching, right?
I mean, are we though?
Yes.
Are we?
Yes. Or
the hypothetical minefield that was rumored.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because I mean that was a thing that was rumored for a while. Yeah.
So like either just don't do it if you don't have a great idea. If you don't have an idea that just goes, yeah, that's it. That's part of this army. That I can't imagine. Because here's what we're saying. When you make a terrain piece, here's what you're saying. Every time that army shows up, this thing is there. Period.
Can I just say that's what incenses me about the Loon Shrine?
Is that every time the goblins fight, they happen to be near a cave with a giant moon built on it. Yes.
Well,
every battle ever.
It's part of where the moon, the Morceleb, has shucked off rock, and they've made a shrine out of it. Right. And which is thus an entrance to a goblin warren.
Right.
Which thus then means they are always on home field advantage.
Yeah, so that's where things like the earlier mentioned outpost, right? That for like cities. Right. Are you telling me that every battle cities ever fought, everyone, there's always one of their outposts near there. They are that effective at constructing these things, right? Like, that's where it just breaks down for me. Because once you print that terrain piece, 100% of battles should be taking place with that terrain piece in the immediate area.
As long as they're free. And this is where I would push back.
As long as they're free.
I wish design space that was explored was this idea that like you buy terrain pieces. Because then some battles wouldn't take place near them, and then whatever rules they have would be scaled then to the terrain piece. And if some terrain pieces are too strong, you just up the cost.
Sure. And I'll say I wouldn't hate that at all. Like, I would not mind at all if suddenly most terrain pieces got a points cost. And that was just something we had to think about now. Right? And we decided to take them if they became an optional thing and not just some free piece of whatever. I would be okay with that in many cases. Now, that does require some very careful thought because, again, many of these are built in as quite considerable parts of the army and of the army's allegiance abilities. Right?
Yep. Like it would take a new edition.
Sure. You can't just flip a switch and say, oh, let's make them all just cost points.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not proposing that at all. Please,
right.
If you're hearing me say that, don't stop. That's not what I'm proposing. What I'm proposing is that in the future, one of the design spaces that is explored is that sometimes terrain costs and let it be optional that people can choose to bring it. And it has a war scroll like other things, but it just has different setup rules than standard units.
Sure. That's an interesting option. I want to shout out a comment here. Or there was a thing that was like optional depending on the general.
Right.
That's an interesting thing that I love. I like that idea. Certain builds or certain things having the terrain piece, then bring it into the battlefield at a reduced or free cost. Okay.
Sure. I'm
I
down
could
with
see
that.
different builds in that being a way,
Yep.
much like the way things become battle line. Yeah, there's lots of space that you could play with these terrain pieces. Just having them be an auto included thing all the time means that by necessity they have to show up in 100% of the games, or they're supposed to. Now, of course, I understand people who are thinking about this in their head, who go like, "Well, you don't have to use the terrain piece." I know you don't have to. I know you don't
Right.
have to. Nobody's saying that. Okay.
Right. And you don't have to put endless spells in your city's armies.
Sure. And again, I don't.
But when
But
you don't, you're just leaving abilities on the table.
yes, and I would argue that that one's less impactful than most.
Right.
A city's army is still quite functional without it. Some
Right.
terrain pieces, your army feels like, oh, I'm just literally functioning worse now for no reason by not having this thing.
Like Sylvaneth.
Sylvaneth's a great example, right? Like, oh, let me just not use many of my actual abilities printed on War Scrolls.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, there you go. That's do you have anything else to say on this one, Tom?
I mean, no. Like, I don't know. I like toys. And like I wish everybody got everything and all of it was optional. Right? Like, isn't that the best of all possible worlds?
No.
Like that where like some like as an army build, like everybody has options like some terrain options. Whether they're generic, like
Oh,
the
you're saying some people just literally, much like we say, some people have bonuses within the spells. Some of the terrain stuff would just be like, you can take a penumbral engine
right,
at or
or sure
whatever.
at a reduced cost or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I just wish that everybody had options for terrain, and some maybe are like incentivized certain things do better than others, whatever. And everybody has options for endless spells or endless spell type of things like prayers, and like you're not required to take any of it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's better. I would broaden that to say I hate box filling because that's very bottom up designy and I don't like
Sure,
it. I'm pure
sure.
top down all the way.
I know you are.
But the Vince is wearing an apron because Vince always wears an apron. Because I sit here and paint and it's to not get paint on myself.
And I love ruining clothes, so I don't.
Yes, correct. Like my apron is very. This is all the stuff that would be on me right now if it wasn't on my apron. So there you go. Um, at any rate, uh, I would broaden that, Tom,
Okay.
to say I would love it if every army had a something in their allegiance or abilities or whatever,
Yep.
even within their war scrolls,
Yep.
that either was terrain or spoke to terrain or interacted with terrain and either was endless spells or spoke to endless spells or interacted with endless spells.
Sure.
What I mean by that is, I'll trot this out real simple.
Yep.
Okay. Nurgle, Beast of Chaos, the best people. Those the people who have those great piece of terrain. They have their terrain. Awesome.
Yep.
Perfect. A plus. Sylvaneth, as I've said many times, they should set up one woods and then turn the other pieces of terrain already on the board into woods.
Yep. They just overgrow them.
Correct. Giants, maybe they act like Foamoroid Crushers and just smash terrain and deal mortal wounds to people around them. Right? Or literally knock over terrain. Or whatever.
Or remove terrain from the table.
Remove terrain from the table. Yes, they're just like, nope, this thing's gone now. Crush.
How
right?
amazing would that be?
It would be my favorite world ever. I would break down. I would destroy all the boats. Bring your stupid boats. I will crush them to splinters. It would be like the old Grand Alliance destruction ability that was my favorite thing in the game, where you could destroy terrain. Why doesn't it exist? Get this out of here.
Yeah. Yep.
I would take it every time. I would pay any number of points. At any rate, but the point is that
ruin people's fun. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I want to have my own fun, and if that means breaking your boats, then that's life. I'm gonna uproot your dumb trees. I'm gonna knock over your herdstones. I'm gonna bone tithe Tithe this, okay? I'm gonna take that thing and turn it into a spear and throw it back through your head. At any rate, um, the Alex said that's why we have two boats. It's a good point. At any rate, the but you get what I'm saying, right? Either on the scroll or in the allegiance or in some way, you have an attitude. You're interacting with that space. That is a game design element, terrain.
Right.
Do
Right.
something with it. It's a big part of the game.
Totally agree.
Every army should touch on it in some way. Okay.
Yep.
And the spells, same thing. It's a big part of the game now. So either you have yours, fine, if there's endless spells that fit and you're a very magic-y army, or you have neat tricks you can do with them, right? Like Seraphon and cities, great, cool. Or you have ways to interact with them, like you can push them around, move them, dispel them, you know, that kind of thing, right? Where you don't care about them. Cool. So just like as long as everybody's sort of fights along those or you know those, it's constructed along those boundaries.
Sure.
Then I feel like we're in the right place.
No, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just the when you come up to a project and say which one is the right one, my hope would be the answer to that question is, well, what makes sense for this army?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
And Mephisto, once my giant army comes out, I will happily grudge you, and I will happily shove that Nexus right back up Catacros's.
Nexus.
Right back. I'll gladly pay my tithe. That's what I'll say. So at any rate, there you go. There you go. That's your terrain, army terrain, and the spells. But of course, I want to know what you think. We've given a lot of opinions. This was a hot take show. So drop your opinions down in the comments. Leave them over there. This is a shorter show tonight because I'm a little under the weather and I'm still recovering. But we'll be back next week. As usual, next week we'll be still not on the road next week, which is good. And hey, if you liked this, hit that like button. It's right down there somewhere. It's over here. It's in this area. Do it. Hit the button because hitting like makes a big deal. It helps people find it. The subscriptions goes wonky all the time. It's hard for people to find stuff. YouTube is an ever-changing morass of complexity. And so the more you hit that little like button, the more it helps other people find the show, which we greatly appreciate. Yeah,
can I
go ahead,
ask
Tom.
a
Please.
For those in the comments, was my camera like cleaner?
Yes.
It was? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it clearly. And a couple people commented as such, by the way.
That's so
The only time it got weird is when you moved way in and out and it had to refocus all of a sudden. Other than that, it was fine.
That's interesting. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, there you go. So there you go. All right, well, very good. Thank you, everybody. Hit like I said, that's greatly appreciated. But as always, Tom, fun as always, sir. Hot discussion tonight. But for all of you out there, thank you so much for watching. We always appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.